Okay, thank you very much. Let's see here. Let's go. Where are we at? What is our system here? Oh, that's the wrong button. It's not what I wanted. There's what we wanted. Okay, welcome into another Tuesday Talks Live. It is Tuesday afternoon, 1 p.m. Pacific time. We do this every single week. Tuesday Talks Live. I'm your host, John Robinson. And if you want to talk about real estate, that's what we talk about most of the time. If you want to talk about life, if you want to talk about your Tuesday, if you want to talk about if you want to talk about God, you want to talk about the Bible, what do you want to talk about today? Let's hear from you guys. I wanted to hear from everybody that joins us today. I have a little bit of a different approach today. I am actually going to force you all today to ask your questions, and then we're going to be trying to answer questions on this show today live. So if you guys want to make this a very, very short broadcast, then don't ask anything, and we'll just I'll say hi, then I'll say bye, and then we'll move on with the rest of our Tuesday. But what I'm hoping is that we actually have some questions come in today. I have a bunch of stuff. I've been out looking at some properties. I got some flyers from some properties that I think might be good cash offer properties. I might talk a little bit about this one I just looked at a few minutes ago, but today I want to hear from you all. You're here today. Some of you are on here every single week, and I'm hoping that I'm going to hear from you guys because I hope that um, that I can get some of your questions answered. It is kind of crazy out there right now. It's you know what I mean by that? I mean, in the market, it's still not stable by any stretch of the imagination. So maybe you guys are dealing with market questions. Maybe you're talking to somebody, a seller right now. You're trying to figure out what kind of an offer to make. I see Josh Hayes is on here. Josh Hayes, welcome in. Good to have you. Josh, I was driving on the way over here to the broadcast location. And so I actually saw some of your questions, but I was thinking maybe you could post some of them in here. So I'll be looking for those. Josh, thank you. Okay, I see it's Jared. Jared, I'm not sure which Jared it is. I know so many Jareds these days. So maybe you can. I don't recognize that screen name either. So if Jared, if you don't mind, maybe post your last name so we have it. If by the way, if you guys are watching right now and you can hear me okay, then please give me a one in the comments. Give me a one. Just post the number one in the comment section so I know you guys can hear me okay. I want to make sure that we're getting started on the right foot here. So give me a one if you can hear me in the comments. Okay, I've seen a couple people coming in. Jared Combs. Oh, cool. Jared Combs. Good deal, man. I hope you have some other deals you're working on. Good to have you here. Got Tyler. Oh, boy. Tyler. Maybe you can share with us in the comments if you got your buyer lined up for the Albany property. Tyler has called me yesterday with a classic example of why I personally don't like buyer's lists. Those of you that are in wholesaling, Jared has, I mean, not Jared, but Tyler has a pretty good deal in Albany, Oregon. Something that he asked me about first. I didn't really think it was something I could do anything with at this moment. I think it's a good deal, but Jared actually, I keep on saying Jared. Tyler sent it out to kind of a shared buyers list, and he had one of those buyers go around his back and contact the seller directly and tell the seller that Tyler wasn't going to be able to perform. Just really kind of messed things up for him. The seller is talking about wanting to back out of the deal. And it's one of the reasons why I don't like dispoing through a big buyer's list. But there's some things that we talked about that he could do yesterday. Tyler, I'm interested curious if you got anybody lined up. Oh gosh, oh my goodness. Tyler says 3 buyers from the buyer's list blast actually all contacted the seller. Now, to be fair to Tyler, these are not some of Tyler's buyers. These are buyers from a list that Tyler actually partnered up with a guy who's got a big buyer's list, and that guy did a big blast. And so now Tyler's dealing with 3 different people all contacting his seller. Guys, I want to just tell you this real quickly. Wholesaling is not for the faint of heart. It is not easy. I don't care what anybody says. Wholesaling is not it's not a clean fun, friendly sport to play. Okay. If you're in the real estate space, most of you know that wholesaling can be absolutely brutal if you're in the wholesaling world at all. Tyler is experiencing that. He's just fighting tooth and nail for these leads. He's working hard to get these leads, sending out letters, direct to seller letters. Got some really good leads coming in, but he says, no, I do not have a buyer lined up. Guys, if you have a buyer, or if you are a buyer in the Albany, Oregon area, great little spot close to downtown Albany. And in fact, I think it is pretty much right downtown Albany. It's just a few minutes away from Lynn Benton Community College. Obviously, if you know that area at all, you're not too far from Corvallis, Oregon State University as well. But really great house. I think it has a lot of potential. It would need to be a direct, just somebody's coming in cash. So please contact Tyler if you're interested in this deal. He's got a good deal lined up. Tyler, I hope that you get that thing sold, brother. I hope that thing turns out to be a lesson learned that is not a costly one, but one that you still make some money on. Sherry says this. Sherry says, I never, all caps, never use Blast, even for seeking lenders, for the same reason. It's a jungle out there. So it's absolutely correct. I don't know why people like to be, they like to think that they can just be completely unethical and it's never going to come back to bite them. I personally have learned a long time ago that even if it seems like it's something you could quote unquote get away with, it's just not worth doing because it always comes back around. So it's always just best to be honest up front. I always tell that to any wholesaler that brings their deals to me, anybody that's asking me about, a deal. I will never, ever, ever go around someone's back. I think that is low down, dirty, and it's shameful. It's not a good way to do business at all. But unfortunately, Tyler's experiencing that, and Sherry sounds like she's had that happen to her too. So, okay, Josh Hayes is one. He's got our first question of the day. Let's look at Josh Hayes. By the way, guys, if you're just joining us, if you're just tuning in, it's Tuesday Talks. We do this every Tuesday at 1 p.m. We have a lot of fun. I usually will have a different topic that we're discussing, but today I'm asking you all to let me know where you're at with your business. What questions do you have? We're trying to get a little bit more interaction from you guys today, so I appreciate you guys that posted one. It looks like you can hear me loud and clear. And I've got Josh Hayes. Let's see. Josh Hayes, I'm going to pull up his question. Right now I have so many leads. It's hard to keep up with all the conversations, even with the CRM. I haven't been looking at any of the on market at all. The agents send me only focusing on off markets. Okay. So Josh, I guess maybe you could give us a follow-up. What exactly is your question here? I think most people would probably say that's a good problem to have. Too many leads, right, to keep up. But I have experienced this before, and I know probably what it is you're going to ask. And I can just tell you from my personal experience that anytime you have that many leads coming in, the way that sounds like you do, my first question would be are these actual leads or are these prospects? In other words, I'll give you an example, okay? Classic example. So last night I called a seller who had filled out a form. Now this is a lead that I bought. I bought it off of a a la carte type of platform. Every now and then I use the a la carte platform to go out and I'll find a lead that it looks like it might be interesting to me and I'll buy it. Now most of those, if you know those platforms at all, you know that these platforms are not set up like to show you every bit of information. You actually are just getting access to the platform. You see the basic information like where the city is and if it's a residential deal. So I purchased a lead off this platform. I called the seller immediately and the conversation went something like this. Ring, 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 ring. Guy picks up. Hello? I said, hey, this is John. Is this so-and-so? Yeah. What do you want? I said, well, I heard you're looking for an offer on the property. Well, yeah, what is your offer? I said, well, I don't really have any information about your property yet. That's why I'm calling you to find out a little bit of information. Well, when you know what your offer is, call me back. Click, hang up. Okay. Now, I would say, this is just my personal opinion, I would say that that's not a lead. That's not a prospect. That's not a suspect. That's just some guy just sitting around on his phone scrolling through things. He saw an ad pop up. He filled out the form, and he just basically was hoping somebody's going to call and offer him $1 million, right? That happens all the time when you do when you do like direct marketing to seller. So maybe you're using a Facebook ad, maybe you're using Google ads, maybe you're using some kind of a platform like a Carrot website or whatever. The point is, when you're doing direct to seller, you have to remember that not everybody that fills out the form is actually a legitimate lead. Okay, so Josh, when you're saying you've got a lot of leads, I personally would say, I would guess that most of those aren't actual leads. And I don't know exactly what you're using to solicit those leads, but I would say that one of the things that I've done is I have created, anytime I've done any kind of on market, if I've done any kind of online market generation. So say I'm running an ad for Facebook or I'm running an ad for Google. I've done both Google pay-per-click. I've done SEO stuff. I will always have a higher barrier to entry if at all possible, because I want what I want is I want to make sure that I really certify that this is a legitimate lead coming in. So higher barrier to entry, meaning I create a few more hurdles for them to jump over in order to actually get to where they are able to submit their information. For instance, okay, one of the things that I do is I require, anytime I'm doing online marketing, I require a first and last name. I require them to put in the actual property address somewhere. Now, on Facebook, you can't actually specifically ask for that. That's considered a violation of the some kind of a, what is that, Property Act, Civil Rights Act. It has to do with property buyers and that kind of thing. So I just create as many hoops as possible for someone to jump through before they get to the place where they can actually click on the button to submit their property to me. Now, why would I do that? I want to make it easy as possible, right? No, I don't. If I'm paying for these leads, if I'm going to be dealing with all the follow-up that comes from generating online marketing leads, I want to make sure that anybody who fills that form out is a very serious prospect, right? Because right now I don't even know if they're a lead yet, but I want to make sure they're at least a really, really good prospect. So if that makes sense, Josh is saying here, I send out 500 texts per day, maybe 50 phone calls. Most of the calls are follow-up. So let's see here. I think I missed another one here. It says I call them, find out if the price they're looking for is realistic, and to make sure it's not a turnkey. And if it is, I ask them to open the creative. If it looks like not a deal, I spit it out even before I underwrite it. I also look for motivation of the seller. If they're a lead, I move forward with underwriting. Okay, it sounds like you've got a good system in place, Josh. When you say you're calling them, and you're also doing, it looks like text blast and cold calling. And by the way, be very, very careful with that. And I know that you, Josh, you probably know this, but I just heard another story of somebody the other day that got a letter from an attorney saying that he was being threatened to be sued, but the seller would settle out of court if he would pay him $30,000. And the whole reason was because he had been soliciting via text message blast. This guy just ended up on his system, and the guy didn't even know it. By the time he generated the phone number for the seller through a skip trace, and then actually made the call between that initial skip traced and when that guy's information was out there, and then the time that the guy actually got his phone number put on the do not call or do not solicit list, the guy who was doing the outbound cold calling text blasting didn't know that. And he is literally fighting to try to get this lawsuit reduced to hopefully $10,000 to $15,000 instead of the $30,000 that the seller wants right now. So, guys, be very, very careful. There's a lot of new rules. There's a ton of regulation. Please do not fall for the idea that you can just grab a list of phone numbers and start texting them. You can, but it's literally like playing, especially these days, it's like playing Russian roulette with a pistol. You remember the old six shooter? You'd have to put one bullet in the chamber, and spin it, and then pull the trigger. You just don't know. And I say that really with all due respect to anybody that's out there hustling. I get it. I've done it before. I've actually text blasted all kinds of lists before. But with some of the SEC regulation that changed about 2 years ago, I actually pulled away from text blasting. I actually pulled away from cold calling. even with numbers that aren't mine, because remember, there's a number that's always connected to the real number. And so just be very careful. Sherry Moore says this, sounds like Josh needs an employee or a VA. I would actually agree with you. The issue with that is, and I don't want to speak for Josh, but I do know that the issue with that is a lot of times, guys, when you hire a VA, a lot of times you're having to train them. And so you typically want to have about 30 days of training involved before you actually turn them loose. And that means 30 days of you not doing what you would normally be doing, but training this person instead. And the other issue is then you're working with somebody that is having to learn your system. If you don't have your systems in place, it can be difficult. And of course, the big thing is you're having to pay them. So not that there's anything wrong, not that we don't want to pay people, but it's a very difficult kind of a decision. You go back and forth. So what I typically recommend is you keep hustling until you land your first deal and close it. Or, and okay, let me back up and finish my statement. Keep hustling, land your first deal, close it. Now you have some money that you set aside to actually hire and train a VA. Okay, you could pay yourself to eat while you're training your VA, get back to doing what you do. Okay, that would be my recommendation. Or you would, Josh, I would recommend that you just basically put a message out in the Facebook group, PDX REI group, TV REI group, if you'd like to, and just let people know, even put it out in your own network. Say, hey, I'm looking for somebody that is good talking to people on the phone, but, and can do follow-up, but is willing to work in exchange for a commission. Maybe on the first one that we land or we close together, I'll split the profit with you half and half. Whatever it is you want to do, you have to create a high level of incentive for somebody to come into your world and actually do the work, in other words, for free. And then hopefully that will end up landing, giving you some free time to go do what you're doing. And you have somebody who has a little more experience instead of just a flat, VA type of thing. Interesting situation with Pace Morby. Pace Morby actually used to own, I think he still does, but most of you guys know Pace Morby, but Pace used to own a company of VA cold callers, text outreach agents, all that kind of stuff. And so he had this company. They had an offer to buy that business, I think, I want to say it was like $5 million about 2 years ago. They turned it down because it was still churning and burning. Well, AI has now more or less made their virtual assistant business almost obsolete. And they have that business for sale right now, that same exact business that just 2 years ago, 3 years ago, tops, they had an offer for around $3 million to buy the business. They're now trying to sell that business. I think it's on like a biz buy sell or some kind of platform for selling technology business for less than $1 million. I want to say it's in the 900,000 range. So the whole world of VAs is going out. It's going away. And that's actually really unfortunate for a lot of people in the Philippines, a lot of people that do the remote work, because a lot of those folks were able to make a very good living, if they had an internet signal and they had access to a phone, and that's beginning to go away. AI is replacing so much stuff, guys. It's actually kind of frightening how much stuff is being replaced by AI every single day. So, Josh, I would actually, you're a smart guy. Before you go out and hire a VA, I would actually look into some different AI integration systems that help you create a series of follow-up questions so that as those leads come in and you drop them into your CRM, you have either an AI agent or you have a bot of some sort that does the follow-up sequence work with them, and then gets it to the point where you actually are able to only call back the very serious sellers, or at least prospects. So I hope that makes sense. Let's see here. What other questions do we have? I think I saw a question from Mr. Andy. Andy says, just got off a call, 7-bedroom, 7-bath, bathroom with each bedroom. Great for co-living, but it's bank owned, has an HOA and limited parking. So I'm going to just stop you right there, Josh, and say, Andy, and say, already when you see a property that has bedrooms and bathrooms like that, you can't help but think co-living. But the issue that you're going to have is before even the HOA, before even the bank owned, is the limited parking. So unless this is in a very kind of a downtown, like or close to public transit, like really close to public transit, that's going to be a huge issue for you. And then, of course, the second question is, it's bank owned. So you can't, there's no negotiating with banks typically. Not saying it's never happened, not saying it couldn't happen. I'm just saying typically when you're dealing with banks, bank owned, REO, real estate owned deals, is it on market? That would be my question. Is it actually listed for sale right now, or is it just a bank owned asset? Because if it's just a bank owned asset, it's going to have to go through that whole entire process before it can actually be put on the market. So Josh, I keep on calling you Josh. Andy, maybe you can go in and do some follow up on that. If it's on market, DSCR would be good. I would definitely find out about the HOA. That would make that part of my due diligence process. So if it's on market, even if it's bank owned, of course, you guys can make an offer. The easiest way to get a bank to accept your offer is to make a really good quick close cash offer. So when you say DSCR, don't forget DSCR, you still have to come up with typically 20 to 30%. I don't know if this property needs repairs. I don't know if there's updates that are needed. Hard money lenders like to, and even DSCR, they like to know if there's any room for value add. So if they give you the loan, are you going to go in and improve it? So that'd be one of the questions that I would ask is what kind of condition is it in? But DSCR is still going to require, probably a minimum of 30 days, more likely 45 days to close. Don't know the timeline here. And it's also going to require about 20-30% down. So just keep that in mind. What other questions you guys have? Questions? Somebody post a question in the comment. I'm going to look at my on Instagram. I believe we're streaming on Instagram right now. So you guys post questions from where you're at. Let me look on Instagram, see if we have any questions there. Give me 1 second. Hope you guys are having a great day. I hope that that you're enjoying these broadcasts. I hope that you guys every now and then go in and share these, or we'll kind of put the word out. Let us know what's going on, because I think there's a lot of people that would probably jump on here if they knew about it. So, oh, by the way, Sherry says yes for DSCR, about 45 days is about right. So thank you for that, Sherry. Sherry, what questions do you have? What are you working on today? What can we help you with? What's something that you'd like people to know about? Let me look here. Okay. Give me 1 second here. Just looking to see. On Instagram, I hardly ever check it, so I don't know exactly what it looks like. I'm trying to find out. Is anybody watching from Instagram? If you guys are watching from Instagram right now, I'd love to hear your feedback, because I'm on my Instagram account for John Buys Houses, and it says here on the platform that we are streaming. It says that we're live right now, but the thing is I don't see it anywhere on my on my actual Instagram account. So apparently I either need to learn more, or I'm just not doing this correctly. So let's see what else. What other questions we have? Janet Nevels. Janet, hello. She says, by the way, Janet, I talked to Bill this morning. He's actually flying into Idaho. He's having to work on going to court and evicting these tenants. It's turned into a big fiasco. So FYI, I did get your text the other day. I didn't have anything new to tell you because I hadn't heard back from Bill, but sounds like he's going to be in court this week to try to get the tenants evicted here in Idaho. So I'll keep you posted. So Janet says, do any investors pay for assignments half up front and half when escrow closes? Okay, let's see here. Let me make sure I get that. Half up front for assignment, and then half when escrow closes. I have never heard of that, and I think you could always ask. So I think that would be something that would be a possibility, maybe. But the thing to remember about an assignment fee is, remember this: assignment fees to wholesalers are typically the product or the end end result of somebody actually getting a deal closed and having that deal in their name, right? So in other words, if I'm going to go buy a property and I'm going to pay a wholesaler, let's just say Josh, who's been out here earlier, he's been posting. Josh has a deal, and he's been out there hustling. He's making 500 texts a day. He's doing the phone call outreach. Let's just say he calls me. He's like, John, I got a great deal, and I've got it under contract. Everything's locked up. We just need somebody to come in with the money. And I'm like, okay, I've got the money. Let's look at your deal. And it's like, wow, this is a really good deal, Josh. Okay. Now, Josh typically would have for everything. He found the deal. He talked to the seller. He worked out the negotiated price. He got a contract signed that actually locks in that price. He's got a closing date in mind. This is a good deal, right? Well, for all that work that Josh did, what Josh could actually say is Josh could say, well, hey, I did all this work on the front end. I did a lot of the heavy lifting. Therefore, I want a $10,000 assignment fee for this deal. I've got it under contract for $200,000. The thing is clearly worth about $450,000 when it's all said and done. We're giving this hypothetical. And Josh says, I think 210, 220 is fair. 220 is not bad, but I'll take 210 just to make it a good deal. So Josh is going to get $10,000 on an assignment. For Josh to say, okay, I actually want $5,000 of this assignment fee up front, and then $5,000 when it closes. Well, first of all, like if it hasn't closed or if it doesn't close, well, now whoever paid that $5,000, assuming it's me as the investor, I'm just SOL, right? It's up a creek without a paddle. The money's gone. Unless Josh is just going to be like, oh, hey, John, I see that deal didn't close. Here's your money back, which I've never heard of a wholesaler doing that. Most wholesalers are, this is no disrespect. We've all been there. Some of you are there right now, but most wholesalers are living hand to mouth or deal to mouth, right? You got to get these deals closed so you get some money coming in. So once that money comes in, it's either going to be spent very soon or it's already spent. So if I pay Josh $5,000, what am I paying him for? I don't have anything that I own yet. I haven't purchased the property. Remember, when we talk about closing, that means the contract is done. It's been fulfilled. The escrow account is closed. That's where that term comes from. And the deed has transferred out of the seller's name into my name as the buyer, which obviously makes it worth paying an assignment fee if it's a good deal. If I don't have the thing in my name yet, it's really not going to, I would technically say that's not really something that'd be worth, that's a pretty risky deal. Okay. Now, if you as a wholesaler incentivize the buyer to pay half up front, that could be like this. In our scenario there, we said, okay, what about someone who's got $200,000 contract that the thing is worth $450 when it's all said and done? They're going to obviously have to put $100,000 in the renovation, but Josh is going to sell it for $210,000. If I come to Josh and I'm like, hey, Josh, I'll pay you your $10,000 assignment fee. And he says, well, I really would like to have some money up front. Then what I could do is I could say, well, I'm willing to give you a little bit of money up front as long as you lower your overall assignment fee. So if Josh says, I need $10,000, but I want $5,000 now, I might say, well, I'll give you $5,000 now, but you're out of the deal now. You're completely out. That's all you're going to get. So in other words, Janet, I think what you need to understand is that stuff is all negotiable. It's all based on how well you know your your buyer, how comfortable you feel with things. I've done deals before where I stepped completely out of it. I actually gave my assignment fee to an end buyer, a retail end buyer, but I also put a lien against the property so that no matter what happens when that property sells, when it does close, I'm going to get paid. And sometimes I'll actually get more money by doing that, by giving up my position altogether. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. Sherry says, John, you're definitely live on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Woohoo! Thank you, Sherry. I don't know why I can't see it on my end, but I appreciate you checking on that. Sherry also is adding here, on another note, I encountered a delay with title companies suggesting a survey should be done on a property with the PML as funding. Had not encountered that before. Okay, that's a great point to bring up. Thank you so much, Sherry. Sherry, I don't know if you are able to, but you might be able to give us some more additional information. But I would say this is probably one of two things. It's either a newer title officer that's wanting to be very, very thorough on what they're doing. So maybe someone's new to the business and they're like, hey, well, I got this item on my checklist of things that need to be done. You know, I don't think we should close on this until a survey has been done. So it's either that, it's a newer title officer, newer escrow officer who is just really wanting to be really, really like they want to get it all done right. So they're checking all those boxes, right? Or it could be actually, it could be someone who is aware enough about something about the property. And they know that it would be really, really a good idea for this buyer to have this thing surveyed before they purchase it, because maybe there's an encroachment on a neighboring property or a fence that is over there or a driveway issue. And they're just wanting to say, hey, we want to make sure that we state for the record that we know of an issue or we're aware that there could be an issue. And so we're just letting the property and the private money lender and everybody know involved, like, we really recommend that you get a survey done. It could be that, and it's probably very likely that. Here's why that is important. Because, for instance, I have a property right now that I bought on an owner carry contract. I did some work on it. I sold that owner carry contract and I pulled out a chunk of the equity that I created by doing the work I did. And then I'm also taking payments. And at some point, I'm going to be exiting out of that deal altogether sometime here in the next 12 months with another balloon payment on the back end. Okay. Now, if I had been aware of the fact that the driveway, which I was assuming was just automatically grandfathered in, if I had been aware of the fact that there was a neighbor behind that lived in the original property, and that neighbor in the back, they actually legally owned that driveway, and that they had beef with the previous sellers. And so they carried that beef over to me as the buyer, and they wouldn't let me use the driveway. Okay, this is a real life scenario. Well, if I had done a survey before, then that's something that could have come up. It would have been out there, and it actually would have saved me a lot of arguing with neighbors. It would have saved me being threatened to be sued by their attorney, and it would have saved me the police coming out and actually having to get involved with my neighbor and some of my subcontractors being blocked onto the property because the neighbor wouldn't let them out of the driveway. So it is definitely it's definitely something that is it does happen. I'll put it that way. Bad things do happen. Surveys will sometimes maybe not save the bad thing from happening, but certainly let the people know that there might be an issue here. So that's something that she said. I thought it was a possibility of an oil well a la Beverly Hillbillies. So could be. One thing to keep in mind too, you guys, is that title companies, and this is something I've learned to ask title officers. I know that a lot of you guys aren't at the closing table yet, or you're not opening escrows, so maybe this doesn't apply just yet. But one of the things I've learned to ask my title companies is, hey, have you had this property on your desk before? Do you know anything about this property? It sounds kind of crazy because we're thinking we're bringing this to them. Remember, title companies see property transactions all the time. They see stuff open escrow, they see it fall out. And so you can actually save yourself a little bit of trouble sometimes by asking the title company, hey, is there something about this particular property that I should know? So that's a good question to get in the habit, because a lot of them see these things over and over again, and they kind of know some of the things. Let's see here. Milan says, I have a private lender that agrees with my 8 to 10% interest rate of return. What would you tell the seller if you don't know the amount? Okay. Milan, or maybe it's Milan. I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. Could you follow that up, or maybe edit that to where we have a little more context? So I'm getting the fact that you have a private lender, and they've actually agreed to a 8 to 10% return interest rate. So you're going to give them, I'm assuming, as the buyer, you're going to give that private lender, let's just say, keep it simple and call it 10% interest. But what do you tell the seller if you don't know the amount? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that part. Okay, so maybe a little bit more clarity on that, and I'd love to talk about that. I really do think that's a great question. While we're waiting on a little bit more feedback on that, Andy's got a follow up on his 7-bedroom large house, Tiger Market, indoors, pool, street parking possible. By most likely HOA won't allow street parking. And yeah, again, anytime you get into HOA, boy, it can just be a nightmare. They can literally shut something down. HOAs, guys, have so much power. And if they're an active HOA, in other words, if you actually have somebody who's really, they take it as that's their, right and their responsibility to make sure these rules are enforced. HOAs take precedent on a lot of stuff. So be very careful what you're getting into there, Andy. Let's see. Tess Kind says, can you speak to steps on getting your spouse out of a W-2? Build cash, then buy and hold? Okay, so obviously the first thing, I think Tess, you and I have talked about this, but the first thing is you have to identify what is the amount that you need. And I would say, if the easy way for me to look at it is, what is the monthly amount that's needed to get that spouse out of the W-2 situation? So in other words, what would you be replacing on a net basis? What does your spouse actually bring home through their W-2 job every month? Okay. I say by the month because it's easier for me to think in terms of month to month than it is to think in terms of annual salary, because most of us, we couldn't survive, right? Maybe you guys are, there, but let me know, how many of us would have a hard time surviving a year if we had, let's just call it $100,000 a year salary, but we only made that salary in the last month of the year, right? So for the first, so January through November, you don't have any income, but you're going to make 100 grand in December, right? Now, if you had that at least 1 year ahead, then you could probably work it out. But the point I'm trying to make is I like to think in terms of month to month, because month to month allows me to kind of, look at it and just kind of do a direct correlation between what do I actually currently make, or what does my spouse currently make, and then what would I have to be generating on a month to month basis, through real estate. So if I know what I have to generate month to month, then I can go back to, okay, well, what's my average number of average dollar amount on a deal, whether that's a flip, whether that's a wholesale, whether that's buy and hold is a little bit tough because most buy and holds are only producing a couple $100 a month, unless you're just really, really, really good at finding buy and hold deals and you have the ability to generate the income, off of that. So I'm not generating income, but go out and get the loan to finance that, right? So in other words, buy and hold is a long-term play. It's something that I would look at as a future maneuver, not so much a present maneuver, unless we talked about this a couple weeks ago, unless you're using the co-living strategy. That's something that Andy mentioned with the 7-bedroom house in Tiger, right? Andy's got the 7-bedroom house in Tiger. Would be great for co-living. Why? Because it has 7 bedrooms, 7 baths, indoor pool. Sounds like a great property, except for that HOA, and except for the fact that it's bank owned, which means you don't know. You can't just walk in and say, "Hey, I want to buy this house from you." They have to go through the entire process, so it may not even be ready to sell yet. The point is, you need to find out that, you have. It's okay. Okay, so I've seen some more information here. So Matthew says $10,000 a month from rentals is my number. Tess is saying, yeah, it's about the same. Okay. Now, here's the thing. $10,000 a month from rentals is, I love that, but let's just talk about what that looks like. Okay. How many of you guys know what is the average amount of money? I want to see it posted in the chat. How many of you guys know what is the average amount of money that a typical rental brings in? Who can post that in the chat? Okay, I'm looking at my phone, checking my Instagram thing. Somebody posts, what's the average amount of income or cash flow that average single family rental makes in a month? I'm waiting on you guys to be interactive here. Okay. Oh, sorry about this. Okay, so Matthew's saying about 500 bucks. Tess is saying 300. Josh says 2 to 400. Okay, I'm liking you guys are tuned in. You're doing good. Okay. Most people would consider. Okay, so Andy says 200 to 600. So we're seeing this range here of anywhere from 200 to 600 cash flow. 200. Sherry says. I tend to agree with Sherry, with Tess. Monica says, obviously, it totally depends. Amen to that, Monica. It does totally depend. But I would say, on average, most people doing buy and hold properties, if they really actually factor in all the true costs, okay, so by that I mean, how much did you have to pay to get the loan generated, right? Because I don't know brokers that do loans without generating a fee. So it's costing you typically, even if you go out and get a loan to finance this, there's costs involved, right? There's realtor fees, or there's wholesaler fees, or there's lender fees, there's broker fees. Then there's the cost of getting the property up and running, right? You have to do work to it. If you take in all the cost of purchase, getting it rentable, getting it on market, managing it, all the little things that tend to happen, the water heater that breaks, the third month into there. If you take all those costs and factor them in and actually put them on a spreadsheet, it's actually kind of discouraging to see how much money an average single family rental property generates, especially in today's interest rate market, right? So when you have a property that's generating, $200 a month cash flow, and then you could say, okay, well, let's just take that number, right? And let's just say that on average, I got $200 a month in cash flow. We'll take that $10,000. This is super simple, and obviously there's more costs involved, but you have to have 50 cash flowing properties of $200 per month, 50 of these single family homes, to be able to afford to say, I'm no longer going to be working at my W-2 job. Now let's just take 50, and let's just say, if on average you were able to pick up 2 every year, okay, let's just say you're able to pick up 2 deals every year, it's going to take you 25 years to retire off of that. Guys, the reality is that most people do not replace their W-2 income from single family rentals, traditional long-term renter model. It just very, very rarely does it happen. You say, well, who's buying these deals then? Typically, it's people that are in business and they have to find somewhere to park their money. They don't even really want, guys, I know people right now, they don't want to generate a lot of cash flow. They're totally fine with 100, 200, maybe even taking a little bit of a loss every month, because of the fact they're in a different tax bracket and they're just buying these properties just to park their money, get the depreciation, and have a great place for a tax sheltering. Okay. So it is definitely a different scenario if you take like what Matthew's saying. Matthew says he's paying off the mortgage will bring me $3,000 a month per house. Okay. So then the question is, how long to pay off the mortgage, Matthew, right? So in other words, like Monica was saying, it totally depends. Now, here's what I look at. I look at it from a very simple point of view, okay? I look at it like this. If I can buy a property and after all my costs are covered, including the mortgage, because the thing is, I don't actually really care what the mortgage is, and I don't want to make it sound like I don't care at all, but I'm just saying that's not really the big number for me. What I care about is, can I pay the mortgage? Can I pay the insurance? Can I pay the management? Can I pay for the little things that happen? Can I set aside a little bit of money each month for the coincidentals, for the vacancies? And after all of that, can I still generate 500 bucks a month? Okay. Now for me, 500 bucks a month makes it worth looking at. I prefer to get something like closer to $800 to $1,000 a month. Okay, so for me, my magic number is $800 a month. That's something that I'm interested in all day long. So now I take that $10,000 per month and I divide that by my number of $800 per month. Remember, we had 50 properties is what I need to pick up in order to do it. It's going to take 25 years. Now I've got it down to 12, we'll call it 13 properties. If I have 13 properties that are cash flowing, 13 properties cash flowing $800 a month on average, That's a $10,400 a month cash flow on top of the mortgages being paid down. How many properties? Let's see. So let's just say 13 properties that I own. They're getting paid down, and I'm still generating $800 a month every month after the mortgage is paid. That's a really, really great position to be in. How long would it take for me to get 13 properties? Well, if we use the same math and we just say, let's just figure we're going to do 2 a year. We took that 25-year time frame, we brought it down to 6.5 years. Okay. Now here's the thing: is if I'm willing to partner with somebody who's going to go out and do all that stuff, then I can actually bring that time frame down even lower. Or if I say I'm going to do, let's just say this. Let's just say I'm going to do. I'm willing to get properties. What am I thinking? I'm willing to get, let's say, $5,000 a month. Okay, let's just say we did $5,000 a month from rentals. Okay, and let's just say we use our number of $800 a month. By the way, do you guys know what you can actually generate $800 a month with? Co-living properties. It absolutely can be done with co-living. It absolutely can be done with some type of group home type of a housing. It absolutely can be done with like an adult care home, residential care home in a single family home. So let's just say I had that $800 per month cash flow, and I only needed to replace $5,000 worth of income. Okay, well, if I do that, now I'm down to 6 properties, and if I average that every 2 years, I can get there in 3 years. Actually, I'll probably get there a lot faster if that's my intention. But the point is, if I just pick up 2 properties every month, and I make sure that every year, okay, 2 properties per year, and each property generates at least $800 per month. So I mean, I'm very selective on what I buy. I know my model. I know I'm going to go in and put co-living in it. And then I take that co-living model and I say, I'm going to get up to $5,000 per month, but I'm going to make up that other $5,000 per month by doing, let's just say, I'm going to start wholesaling. Okay. So in other words, why would I do that? Because if I am wholesaling, then it's very, very possible through wholesaling to do 1 deal every month on average. Okay, now on average, what does that equate to? That equates to 12 deals a year, right? Okay, now if you take the $10,000, kind of your classic number that's used for wholesalers, $10,000 per deal on assignment fee, then all I have to do is I have to do 1 wholesale deal every 2 months. Okay, so in other words, you can see where the math comes in here. If I'm wholesaling, by the way, why would I want to wholesale? I thought we were talking about rentals, John. Well, think about this. If I'm wholesaling, that means I'm generating my own leads, typically, right? That means I'm doing agent outreach, or I'm doing like Josh, I'm doing text blasts, I'm doing phone calls. But if I'm generating my own leads, then I have a really good chance of picking up those properties, those 5 properties that I'm looking for. The ones that I'm trying to get to turn into co-living. Get my terms mixed up here. I'm going to see those deals first, right? I'm going to be in that world of dealing with people that are doing these types of things. And therefore, it is very, very possible for me to do a little bit of wholesaling for the first couple of years and buying and holding selective properties for the first couple of years. I can very easily accelerate getting from 0 to $10,000 per month on a time frame, on a timeline of, guys, it's not actually that difficult to get there in about 3 years. You could get there in quite a bit less time if you go all in on it. And that's pretty much the main thing that you're doing. So Matthew here says, I'm doing it in chunks from flip profits. So maybe 2 to 3 more years living way below my means. Matthew, that's always good. I would encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. The only thing that I would say that you might want to adjust, and this I guess goes to Tess as well, and anybody that's looking to replace that W-2 income is if you, the old expression is, and there's even a book you're written by this, is 10x is easier than 2x. Okay. And I would say 10x is easier than 2x, and 2x is easier than saving your way into, a living situation that you want. Because here's the thing with saving money, living below the means, the Dave Ramsey approach, I'm totally fine with, being debt free. I have no problem with that. But here's the thing. When you're just trying to live way below your means, so you can live now like nobody else wants to, so you can live later like nobody else can, that type of mentality, the assumption is that inflation is that you're saving the same amount at the same rate that inflation is going up. Guys, there's so much crazy inflation that's not accounted for. Has anybody been to Costco lately? Has anybody been to Walmart? Has anybody gone down and got a gallon of milk? Or let's just talk about eggs, right? The price of everything is going up so high. I got my oil change in my wife's car this morning, and I pulled in one of these not Jiffy Lube, because those don't go to Jiffy Lube, but I pulled into like an Express Lube, one of these places. And by the way, if you guys don't know that, especially in the Portland area, Jiffy Lube is where every crackhead and every guy that just gets out of prison goes to work. And I'm glad there's places that employ them, but unfortunately, the people that own a lot of the Jiffy Lubes there in the Portland area are very, very much not interested in helping their employees become better or reintegrating into society. It's just like a place where there's a lot of turnover, a lot of drugs, a lot of drugged out people there working literally on the clock. So just be careful at Jiffy Lube. Don't ask me how I know this, but it's true. But I go to the place this morning. I'm literally expecting about a $65 bill for the oil change. It was $110, and even for me, I was like, "What? $110 for an oil change?" I mean, I could do that myself, right? Well, now you're starting to get into that economy of like, well, some of this stuff used to be worth paying somebody else to do. Now you wonder, maybe I should just do it on Saturday or Sunday afternoon instead of my afternoon nap between church, right? So the point is, there are certain advantages to saving money, but when you're just trying to get ahead by saving money, it's just not as effective as it used to be because inflation is going so high so quickly. So what I try to do is, okay, Jared says Jiffy Lube gives zero training. Yes, thank you for that testimony. That's what, yeah, Sherry's saying, dude, get that work done into burbs. That's right. So thankfully, by the way, if you guys don't know this watching right now, I'm broadcasting from Idaho. We actually live in Idaho now. I'm in Portland every month, but Idaho is still a fairly safe place to go, even for like an Express Lube. I'd like to hear it. If you guys have never been to Idaho, if you've never been to Boise, Idaho, give me a raise your hand or give me a 1 in the chat if you've never been to Idaho. I'm just curious how many people in here have never been to Idaho. Because here's the thing. If you've never been to Idaho and you come to Idaho, especially if you're coming from like Portland or Seattle, you get here, I promise you this, you're going to be blown away by how clean everything is. How, it's like there's American flags flying everywhere. It's like, people really still have a higher level of customer service. I'm not even exaggerating. Tess, if I'm lying, I'm dying. You know this. Tess can attest to this because she lives in the Treasure Valley area as well. Guys, Idaho is still a place where I joke around. I say Idaho still feels like America. Okay, so having said that, whenever I come to Idaho and I compare like a Express Lube or a Valvoline type of a place to like almost anywhere in Portland, it's such a night and day difference. It's just even hard to. So, okay. Jared says, I haven't been back for 30 years. So Jared, you obviously haven't missed it enough to come back. But here's the thing. I'm not getting into this to get into the political stuff. I'm just saying there is a stark difference in contrast on a business level, on a customer service level, that I didn't mean to get into, but I'm the one who brought up Jiffy Lube. So that's my fault. I'm going to take the blame on that. Where was I at? Matthew's saying, doing it in chunks from flip profits. Again, Matthew, the issue I have with doing flip profits to try to get to 10,000 a month is that you're taking transactional things, right? Which is totally fine. We've all done them, and I hope you guys are doing great on your flips. By the way, have you guys heard about the flipping field trip coming up later this month? That's May 24th. I understand it's Memorial Day weekend. Some people in the area are going to be out of town already, but if you guys are in Portland at all, please come out for the flipping field trip. We're going to have Robert Harden on here today to talk a little bit about it, but I tagged him a little too late, so he wasn't able to get on. So we'll try to get him on sometime in the next week or so. But the flipping field trip, that's going to be coming up. What is that? I think that might even be next weekend. Is it? Gosh, I don't know. This month is flying by. And by the way, guys, I'm looking to wind this thing down. So if you have any more questions, feel free to throw it in here. But yeah, I guess the flipping field trip, if I'm looking at my calendar correctly, that is not this coming weekend, but the next weekend in Portland. We're going to be going 3 different flips on site. Caitlin Beals is one of them. We have 2 others that are not been announced yet. We're still finalizing the details. But again, the flips are awesome. Flips are great. Please come out to the flipping field trip. But remember, a flip is a transactional thing. It's a transactional type of purchase. It's a transactional type of payment. In other words, you transact and now you're done. That's why you want to get into long-term buy and hold if at all possible. But remember, if you're going to do single family rentals, you want to shoot for a model on the back end that's actually going to be able to produce a pretty good chunk of cash flow every month, to where even whenever you if you have tenants moving in and out, it's not affecting you're not like, okay, I've got this downtime or I've got to relaunch, I got to remarket. That's why I like the co-living model. And by the way, if anybody knows of a good cash lender, Tess told me a couple weeks ago about a deal here in Boise. I made an offer on it. I'm under contract to pick it up. My hard money lender doesn't normally do deals in Idaho. He's from Salem, Oregon, and so he was totally fine with doing the deal. But now, by the way, I'm bringing in a chunk of money for down payment. So Sherry, if you know somebody, Jared, if you know somebody that can give me a hard money loan very, very fast, I'm actually looking for a HML on this to finalize the purchase on a property here in Boise. But 6 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, with the option to convert 4 of the bedrooms into additional, like where there's 2 people per bedroom. Sherry, this is in the purchase price is going to be about $565, including all the fees. So, and I'm bringing in about $150 from my partner on this one as a down payment. So you kind of do the math. It's somewhere in that down payment range of about, I think it's about 15%. So anyway, if you know somebody that can do it, but here's the thing is it has to be quickly. So I have the seller absolutely needs the money ASAP because they have a laundromat that they're under contract to purchase, and the seller needs money. So Sherry, if you have somebody that we could talk to, then let's definitely follow up. And Jared, same thing. Ask around. I just need somebody that can close very quickly. So I've already talked to Chris Burdick of Rain City Capital. I've talked to Alex Mora. I've talked to, I haven't talked to Landon yet from Seton Funds, but I've talked to somebody else over in Oregon. The problem is most of these people in the Oregon market they're slow to invest in Idaho because of the fact it's just not their main market. And I haven't been in Idaho long enough to establish really good relationships with any hard money lenders here. So Andy says, I know some hard money loan people in Idaho, especially mainly new construction. Andy, do ask if you can put something together. I'd be happy to pay a referral fee or however it works out, because I need to get this thing done ASAP. So appreciate you guys. I'm just going back through trying to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Got a lot of good chat and chatter here today. So if I didn't hear from you guys, then now is your last chance. Post it real quickly. Milan, I would love to answer your question about but I didn't quite grasp the concept of what you were trying to get at. So maybe you can message me directly in Facebook or on Messenger, and I'd be happy to help you out if at all possible. I think we're kind of winding things down here, guys. Anybody else have any other questions? Any other questions, comments? Charity, yes, Charity has hard money lender. I've already contacted her referral, and kind of the same thing. They're like, oh, they don't like. Here's the thing: hard money lenders typically don't like to put money into properties that don't have value add. This particular deal is turnkey. The only thing that I have to finish is the apartment in the back. And so it's a little bit of a awkward situation for a hard money lender, because typically they're wanting to put money into properties that I'm going to go do the work on and increase the value of their collateralized asset. So it's a little bit different here, and I'm not sure exactly if that hard money lender that Charity said is going to be able to do it. Josh Hayes, last question for the day, says, can you turn a 3, 4, or 6-plex, et cetera, into a co-living? The answer is, of course you can, if if the zoning allows for it. So one thing to remember with co-living is typically a single family residence that is being kind of turned into a communal living type of a space. Josh, I personally don't know why you'd want to, because if you already have a 3 or 4 or 6 plex, remember, anytime you have a plex, you're indicating its own unit, right? So let's just say a 6plex would have 6 units, all with their own bedroom and bathroom. Therefore, you're able to actually get rent from each of those 6 individual units. The idea of co-living is where you take a house, a single family house, it's one unit, but you set it up in such a way by putting divider walls or by putting additional bedrooms or converting space into a bedroom. You have more bedrooms, therefore more tenants, but those tenants are typically all sharing the same amount of bathrooms. So if it was me personally, I would not want to turn a 6plex into a co-living situation. The whole idea of co-living is to take a single family residential living property like a house where you'd have a family or maybe a couple roommates, and you could generate, let's say, $2,000 a month in rental income from a 12-month contract. You take that same property, 4-bedroom, let's just say 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and you add 2 additional bedrooms by converting the formal dining room and converting the living room. Now you've got 6 bedrooms, 2 baths, and you're now actually able to generate, instead of the $2,000 a month, you're able to generate, let's just say, $700 per bedroom. And that $700 times, now you have 6 bedrooms. You do the math, you got a $4,200 a month property there. So you can more or less double your rental income by doing co-living. But if you have a 6plex or a 3plex or a 4plex, triplex or 4plex, it's not really worth it because you're already set up as individual units generating usually pretty good income. So, okay, everybody, appreciate you all being here today. I wanted to say God bless and hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. If you got any value out of this, please share, please make a comment, please give us a thumbs up, give us some hearts, give us some love. And then again, don't forget, mark it on your calendar, May 24th. It's the flipping field trip with Robert Harden and his group. We're going to be converging PDX REI group meetup with Robert Harden's group meetup. And we're going to be doing this together, 3 different on-site visits to flips that are active in the Portland area. And then we're going to be going and kind of converging in the evening at the regular spot. So hopefully we'll see you guys there. And God bless you all. Thanks, Sherry. Talk to you guys soon. We'll see you soon. And let me know if you have any questions. You can shoot me a DM. Take care.